couple of months ago, we launched what we're doing now, which is a podcast series. And it's really meant to be part of this sort of ideation of how do people get to where they are and what is it that they see for the future, obviously for their own businesses, but of course for the city. And given the state of events that are taking place these last couple of months, let alone the last couple of weeks, you know, I'm really thinking of who could we have on that would be impactful, that has a resonance within the community, and that really knows Detroit from the past, present, and potentially, you know, has a pretty interesting idea for its future. So that's how we reached out to you. So thank you for joining. Yes, yes. So what we'll do is we'll have a little chat about your background. I think that's interesting for people to know because you've got a great story to tell. You know, a little bit about you, what your connection is to Detroit, and then we can get into a bit more of the business end of things, and then sort of future forecasting of both small business and obviously your new role within the state. Congratulations with the governor's office. So we'll get into that as well. So why don't you give us a little bit of background on Cindy Pasky and some of your stories that you, I'm sure, have that are extremely exciting to share.
Wow, thank you. I don't know. Well, you know, S3 is going to be 30 years old in October. So I've been in this job for a pretty long time. But, you know, my grandparents came to Detroit in 1911 from Lithuania and lived on the east side, 991 East Cricksdale, and they lived there their entire life. My dad graduated from Pershing. And so Detroit is just, it's who we are, and it's who I am. I've lived back in the city proper since 1986. So you know, a lot of people that I talk to now, I've lived in the city longer than they've been alive. So it's like, okay, I get it. You know, I try and balance that and not be, you know, okay, I understand. But what that means is that, you know, you can have a different perspective, having actually lived here that long, on how the city is changing and what that means. You know, S3 is all around the world, and that helps as well too, because then you get to see different things in different cities and communities and countries. And to me, perspective is just, it's just so important. And being able to level set every day as to where you are, and how you compare that to where others are at that same point in time, if that makes sense.
Of course, of course. So how do you level set? I mean, you know, not getting into what's going on today yet, because that's a conversation to have in a minute, but, you know, kind of what are your parameters? Because A, you're successful. B, you've started this on your own. C, on the business side of things. C, you know, you've come from a background that's been pretty diverse, from Lithuania to Detroit and everything that, you know, falls in between. Presumably you travel and you've had a lot of influences. So how do you level set? What is level setting for you?
For me, it's always making sure I remember what my frame of reference should be, and recognizing that I might start my day and right now there's a lot of things going on in our world, but you know what, we can still vote. We can still vote. Women can still vote. We can thrive. We can have an opinion. We have media and press. And so, you know, it's like, for some people, it's like, how can you look at that when my world is this? And I understand that, but for me personally, it's like, don't forget where we are and what we can do. We have an ability to help be part of a change, drive a change, create awareness. I mean, look at your role and what your group does. So it's just remembering that when you start and say, well, okay, in the big scheme of things, I'm not in Russia, right? I'm not in China. I'm not in a country where I'm not allowed to drive, where I'm not allowed to show my face, where I'm not allowed to show my hair, let alone, you know, in normal times my hair has a lot of green in it. But I really mean that. And we can vote. And we can have a media that can have opinions, and publishes and broadcasts, and that's still not the case all around the world. And so I always, particularly, I'm 60, so I look at this and I go, don't ever forget that. And then when you look at the challenges you have to face for the day, remember that those are challenges you don't have to deal with, and protect them.
And I think, you bring up such critical points, because we're so lucky actually in this country, given even the circumstances that we're under now. But, I too have a background not from here originally, but lived in Michigan and especially Detroit my whole life. But when you do have a chance to see a little bit of a different perspective, like you just mentioned, that, we're not in more oppressed scenarios with our lives, how lucky we are. You look at America in so many ways. The beauty of America is that can-do mentality, that you can do things here truly so much more easier than in other places. And that's, as an entrepreneur on my end, and you are an entrepreneur and you deal with so many on your end, I think that beauty of that can-do mentality and not forgetting the pluses of what we have in front of us, as opposed to, of course, the angst of certain moments. And I think also this idea of making choices, and you seem to have made certain choices, as we all do, but I think making qualitatively good choices, if you can, are key, because your world can go this way, your world can go that way. And look at the choices that you seem to have made that sort of separates you to others, So, so tell me, those are such, fascinating, especially as you mentioned, as a woman, as a probably a little bit more opinionated woman, to be able to get to where you're at. And you're kind of like a Pied Piper. Everybody sort of wants to be around you at the same time.
Thank you. Well, let's say it's like I made the decision to move back into the city, in 1986. And I think it was the right decision. Absolutely. I think living in a city is, it's the best type of education and social life and interaction that you can have. The decision to start S3 in 1990, and to say, look, we can do this business, we can do it well, but we can also do it well and care about people and care about our communities. And then within that decision to say, we're going to be headquartered in the city. And all of our offices all around the world are in cities, as they should be. And I think, and then to make the decision that said, when we were really small, we didn't have any money, but it didn't mean that we couldn't support, right? It didn't mean we couldn't do paint the town, which help somebody with their home, or take meals to senior citizens, or walk a dog at the Michigan Humane Society. So we also from day one said, we're going to make the decision to demonstrate that you can really care about your communities, you can really contribute, you can really engage and build a good, successful, profitable business.
Less and less rare today, because people, I think, are also starting to realize that they need to give back to themselves, because, we do a lot of volunteering on this end too. And you don't know who's it helping more, the person that you're volunteering or yourself at the end of the day, and who cares, because it truly is a rewarding experience. But it takes effort. It takes effort to do that, and it takes a mindset that's a little bit different. You have
to be intentional about it.
Sacrifice, you have to be, you really do. And you kind of need a regularity to it. They said now within these last 3 months that you form a habit within 3 months time. And so now you're looking at people working from home, but really, you have to be, I think, and a key to, on my end that I've noticed, this notion of being regular with things and having a consistency to do things matters.
It does matter. It's the whole time we've been in this particular quarantine situation or lockdown or whatever. I get up at the same time every morning. I walk the dog at the same time. I do my hair. I do my makeup. I start my day, and because of the work that we do in S3, in any instances, I was still starting my day in my office, but the days I was starting it with home, I was doing it the same way. it was just, to me, it was just, it's a different place that I'm working from. But I
Yeah,
have to.
I mean, it's located. It's, you know, what did a Pretty Woman, Julia Roberts say? It's just geography. So
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
whether it's your office or your home, it's just geography.
That's right.
But you guys didn't really skip a beat. I mean, through what happened with the lockdown, you really didn't skip a beat with the business, right?
Thank you. No, we didn't. And, you know, we were very, not to overuse the word, but we were very intentional. We over communicated with our teams. But it was important to me that, one, they all heard from us. They all saw us. Our consultants were all touched, spoken to. But it was also clear that the message was S3 is not stopping. You know, 98% of our revenue last year came from corporations that were deemed essential, which meant they had to keep working, which meant we had an opportunity to keep working. And it was like, we're not going to say that this isn't really serious and it's really different and difficult and all of those words, but we said, but we're not going to stop. And it took about 2.5 weeks for the overall S3 core team to settle in and go, we got it. Okay, we have to do our job. We're going to do our job, and we'll work through this as a team. And they were amazing. We worked more hours in the last 3 months than we probably worked since the first 2 years of being in business, and kept a lot of people working. Last month, we put 500 plus people to work in new jobs. Took care of everybody for our entire population around the world. Touch wood. We had 2 people that were sick with the virus and both recovered.
Right.
And we kept everybody working. So it was, but it wasn't easy. But it was also very, like, you saw a lot of companies in our industry, even ones that are much, much larger than us. You saw them just like buckle down, and they started laying off people and cutting salary. And our assumption was our customers are going to need us, and we have to find a way to bring value, and we're going to start right now.
So just to backtrack a second, how many employees do you have at S3 Global?
Total global, just under 4,000.
I mean, rocket I'm so impressed.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you started in, there was a story about in 99, you ended up branching out to Lithuania. You started here in 90, and you became international 9 years later.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so we're in 14 countries now. We're in 48, we have people in 48 states. We don't have brick and mortar in all those locations, but we have people in 48 states and 14 countries. Yeah, and then, you know, celebrated 20 years in Lithuania last year, so.
Such an accomplishment. I mean, just to like go to bed thinking, you know, you have 4,000 people that you're kind of, you know, doing a lot of stuff for. They're doing a lot for you too. Not to put the pressure on.
Right. It's like, you know, my favorite, my question, people will say, well, what are the things you're most proud of? And it's like, we never missed a payroll. And that's still, we never missed a payroll. Payroll's on the 15th. We're not going to miss a payroll. I could tell you today how much cash we have in the bank. I could tell you the size of that payroll.
Incredible.
And that's always going to be the case.
A kind of business question, and if you don't feel comfy, don't answer. But did you ever end up, at least at the start, did you need to take out a loan as a business?
No, we're really fortunate. You know, we've been profitable every year we've been in business, and we have no debt. We have a great banking relationship with JP Morgan Chase, but we also have we have an appropriate amount of cash, and so no, we didn't need to take out a loan. We didn't need to draw on our credit line. Our goal is to always have at least enough cash to do 2 payrolls for the entire company.
Wow. That's pretty huge. I mean, I know we've got a much smaller team than you do. At one point, I had a little larger team with another business I had, but no, the responsibility really of bringing it in for the team is, you know, it trumps everything.
It does trump everything. And then if you think that it's just like, and being able to touch everyone, to let every consultant know, it's like, we want you at home, we want you working, the customer still wants you working. Keep doing your job. What do you need? You have something you didn't need. But once again, also with the consultant population, once they realized, then they were like, good, you know, and we do special outreach town halls with them, and we have great attendance. But it was just, you had to get to everybody, and you had to get to everybody in a personal manner, not like a mass email. So we probably set a record for phone calls in the last 30 years. We probably made the most phone calls that we've ever made as a company in the last 3 months.
Boy.
Yeah.
Boy. I mean, it's interesting because you actually had to hyperspeed in order to keep the momentum of what you already had going, as it was steady, but you had to hyperspeed, and your team, your core team. No, I mean, you know, we deal a lot with communications for other clients and similar in email marketing, and that's always that fine balance. How do you make it meaningful without being too mass and just sort of a 1, 2, 3 step process? But it matters because people can tell immediately.
They can tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we started something that was personally really fun. You know, I asked the field to give me like a couple consultants from each location and a couple customers that I would call every Monday. So what better way to start the week to say thank you? And the last thing any of them were expecting was to hear from the CEO. I'm just calling to say thank you. You're doing a really great job representing us, or I know that, you know, you're still giving us opportunity to service you, and you've been great to work with. And David, our rep in California, says you've been really supportive. And I'm just calling to say thank you. And there's just this like long pause, you know, and they're like, wow. And it wasn't a way to start a Monday, right?
Yeah, for sure. They're like, what lucky start did I just fall under? No, that's amazing stuff. You're giving me notes to now also be taking down for us. I love this. So you back to strategic staffing, because on our end, sort of, you know, we haven't used you yet. Hopefully one day we can, but we haven't used you yet. But yet you're prevalent throughout the city. I mean, we'll see with an Eastern Market posters, you know, supporting something that you guys are supporting within the city, or you name it. There's something involving strategic staffing in some kind of form of an event throughout the city continuously.
Yeah.
Whether it's the parade or the turkey trot or all these great things.
The market. We love the market.
Right. Yeah. Do you shop at the market yourself?
I do. I've gone to the market every Saturday. I've been in town since I was 16. So a long time. And my grandparents shopped at the market. Wow. So, and you know, when I was growing up, it was pretty challenging. And so the market was a really good cost-effective way to shop, and it still is. And now for me, it's like when I'm at the market, I feel like I'm at home. So, yeah.
So it's a little different today with everything being virtual, and you kind of have to pick up what you're looking for. But I think that they're opening up the end of the month. I think
they are open. I was there Saturday, and they have appropriate ways to enter. They've got, if you go into the sheds, they've got all the floors taped, so there's no question how you stand 6 feet apart. Yep. They've got tables in front of all the vendors, so that it guarantees 6 feet apart from you and the vendor. Yep. Everybody is asked to wear a mask. There's extra hand washing stations. I can't say enough about Dan Carmody. I know. The leadership with the market has been phenomenal. The whole box food pickup was really special as well. And then they've stopped this, but they also did bulk food because we had a lot of wholesalers that sold to restaurants. So they had food and they had no market. But the market is open. Today's our first Tuesday market. And they're still going to do like the Zumba class and the yoga class with all the appropriate social distancing. And then Saturday market is open as well. So
yeah, it's great stuff. So tell us a little bit about what is it that strategic staffing does the best? What is it that you think kind of separates you from the rest? Because you have huge competitors that you have to compete with, of course, and money is money and business is business and you have to make money. So what is it that sets you apart?
Well, thank you for asking. I think there's two things. On the sales side of our business, we focus on core industries. So we don't have 100 customers. You know, we service 25 customers, very large corporations. But we focus on a handful of industries, and having done that for 30 years, we're really good in those industries. So when we work with a customer from a sales standpoint, we obtain credibility very quickly because they know we actually know their business in some instances as well or better than they do. And that's a very different approach. It requires a lot of discipline. A lot of companies, particularly larger ones than us, they like to say, we have 1,000 customers, we have 500, and we're like, we service customers in these industries and that's it. And we stick with it. And then on the recruiting side, we really hire for capability, and can we train someone? Can we work with a customer to give someone an opportunity? Can we support them upskilling? And there are obviously some jobs, like when you're in the healthcare industry, where you absolutely have to have a certain training, a certain degree, a certain, qualification. But in other instances, if you have appropriate skills, you can learn how to do something. And what works well is when you sell the way we sell, you have long, deep relationships with customers. So if you come to a customer and say, we'd like to bring this group of individuals in, they're 60% of what you're saying you're looking for, but we can make it work, most of the time you get a yes. So then you have an opportunity to create opportunity for people that they might not have access to, if that makes sense.
So completely. So you're really strategizing around how you're going to not just fill the role, but really make that person be the best candidate and the best option for that role. And so much of this is this idea of facilitating workforce development and nurturing not just the relationship, but also making sure that the asset or that individual that you're bringing into that scenario works well.
Absolutely. Works well. Yeah. And it brings value and enjoys what they're doing. And it's like, we believe part of our mission as a company is to create opportunities for people to change their station in life, create jobs, the bar high for what a corporation should do, and then use all of that to have the resources to engage and support our communities. And there's always so much talent out there that sadly is overlooked because they don't pass an online screen, they don't pass a automated resume matching thing, their communication skills aren't as good because they're nervous. I'll give you one example. Whenever I hear someone say that they can't find logistics people, I always ask them if they have a military recruiting program, and they're all like, yeah. And I'm like, no, you don't. And they'll be like, yeah, we do. And I'm like, no, you don't, because if there's anything the military does well, it's move stuff. Big stuff, little stuff, everything. So if you have a military recruiting problem, you should never have an opening in your logistics department.
But I think that, to me, really what you do on the, I don't know if it's fair to say, if it's correct to say HR, you're strategizing around how you're working within departments with clients, right? I'm assuming, I'm kind of guessing here on the staffing end of things. I have had experience over my career with large corporations and mid-size and local and global and the like. And one of the things I have said for years is the experience or the know-how or the perseverance even maybe, or just the nose of the HR person is so critical in making up the dynamic of the company and of course the success and the future of the company. And I think for many years, it's almost like I saw a tide turning maybe 5 years ago, and you'll know this of course like the back of your hand, but to us sort of, those on the street, you kind of felt like the tide was turning, that people were starting to finally realize, okay, I need this type of a person in this type of a role, diversity officers or directors or whatever the case might be, whatever level of staffing qualification. But HR and working with HR is so much the backbone of a company and who they are and what they believe in and how they operate. So to me, for what you do on the front end, where you're actually the go-to and the giver of a lot of that information to these people is pivotal for companies.
It is, and you know, you saw a lot of large corporations. You know, HR has it has two functions. It has the acquisition or the onboarding of talent, right? And then it has the support, protection, and discipline in many ways of the talent. So you know, so it has those two functions, and we went through this period where the thought for a lot of large corporations is, oh well, we can save costs if we start to automate the talent acquisition side.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, it costs them more because it raised their cost of hire, because when you were automating it, you didn't have, to your point, that person that was like, I know Jim could do this job.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how to get him in that job. But when it's automated, Jim's CV never comes through the process.
I mean, remember how for many years, whether it was the Indeeds or the LinkedIns, and of course this is all level of HR, but people were so frustrated because they couldn't break through that automation, as you mentioned. And you really, I think, to your point, it's almost like you guys act as a advocate for that individual coming in, so that if they maybe don't have the best communication skills, you know what their capabilities are because you feel secure. And so then you twist and turn and you sell them, and I mean this positively, to the client.
Positive way. You're spot on. That's exactly what we do. And when we're on our game, we do it really well. We put a lot of people to work, and then our customers are really satisfied because the people value the opportunity and they value the work that they have.
Incredible. So, I mean, there's 101 things to talk to you about. I think this is kind of an interesting bridge to the new position that you were just named as the chairperson for the governor's newly formed Workforce Development Board. So congratulations. Big deal.
Thank
Big
you.
deal for all of us within the economy and small businesses and mid-sized businesses, and of course, I'm sure for the governor's office. So what does that mean? What do you do?
Well, you know, I've had the opportunity for 5 years to co-chair the Mayor's Workforce Board with Dave Meter, who's the vice chairman at DTE Energy. And, you know, the mayor gave us an opportunity to create the board from scratch. And we feel, I mean, we're not done, but we feel that it's been successful in many, many measurable ways. And so, you know, we really have the opportunity to do the same thing for the governor. You know, a lot of the workforce funding comes from the federal dollars, and Jeff Donofrio and was able to secure approval from the feds for us to structure a workforce board at the state that doesn't really look like the other states. So to the governor's credit, it's like, how do we actually pull together the right individuals to represent the state, to represent small business, to represent diverse business, to represent labor, but also to have a board that's actually going to engage and actually going to function. And that's what we have an opportunity to start. So I think when you look at the makeup of the governor's board, when you compare it to other states, you're going to see that it looks different. She's got Republicans and Democrats sitting next to each other. We have labor at the table, community at the table, but it's also very manageable, right? So and now it's to say, how do we understand the workforce needs in the state, right? We don't want to train and pray. We want to understand the workforce needs. We want to understand the skill level of individuals, and then how do we put the right plans in place with the appropriate funding to accelerate the process of getting them together.
Just because I have a professional deformation towards strategy. The big idea is one thing, you know, people always can come up with, you know, great ideas and big ideas. It's the implementation and the execution of things that kind of, you know, when the dust settles, then what? And there's so many things within states, and now that we're starting, I think, to all be a little bit more educated also in the government, from federal government to local government, state, of course, government, things that we would want to change, not change, you know, things we like, things we don't like, and of course, working within a community of different beliefs and interests and the like. Making sure that the economy thrives is is probably number one, maybe
Right.
number one, number 2 points, besides I would say probably education and infrastructure via technology and similar, but making sure that economy is thriving and knowledgeable and knows where to go. Because, a lot of stuff that we see also is that there's a repeat of resources that are out there, which is great. There's every
point.
You know what I mean? Every site, every business, every city site, every this or that, there's, a lot of stuff going on, let's say for COVID, and there's, all of that's good, but it's also, you kind of get blinded. I think that people don't really realize the human factor, that humans react a certain way just because we do. So you can't constantly be barraging with the same information. Now it's about how do you take that information and make it useful so that
and really accessible. Yeah, useful and accessible.
And accessible, exactly.
Yeah. And then how do you measure it? So it's to your point, it's like a lot of providers for training in workforce. One of the things that we've done with the Mayor's Workforce Board is when someone participates as a provider and a trainer, they have to be willing to report on their results, not just who signed up and finished a class, but how many of those people gotten a job and how many of those people were still in a job. Yeah. That sounds real straightforward, but it was a big shift.
For sure.
So it's like we want to be able to track what actually happens, not how many people go through the process. Yeah. So it's a shift, but it's just one small step in many that, to your point, it's like you have a big vision, but how do you say that this vision actually is delivering? So you split it up into segments and you say, this is how we're actually going to track this. And this is how we're going to bid the business. Say, yes, we would love to have this entity provide training, but part of their ability to do that is to be able to actually say, I will share and report not just who I sign up, but who finishes the class, and more important, who gets a job and how long they stay in that job. Straightforward in the business community, hasn't been so straightforward in the workforce world.
And I don't know if there's overlap or correlation to this, but we did some work over the years with returning citizens, and because data is king, content's queen, data is king. That's sort of our motto on the business side of things. But you can really, through tracking, obviously, but then what do you do with that data is the second kind of component. This is where we have been digging in on the strategy side, and we actually produce solutions. I mean, it's another conversation at another time, but we were on the path. Things ended up changing on the governor's side, so this is while Governor Snyder was in, but we were on this path of a simplified system. It's an app, actually, that would be easy to use. It would be a reminder base for returning citizens that come into post incarceration, that come into back to their homes and back to their lives. Now what? Did you even know that the bank down the corner had free checking? Did you know that you had these classes to take your kids to next Wednesday? So they're friendly reminders, and it's an opportunity to build out tools through technology and innovation, utilizing the data that's already in front of us. It's just about aggregating. But what I wanted, but what I wanted to also add to that also got us, and now I forgot the number, you might know, but I think within Metro Detroit, there's 200 and some, maybe even 300 services that are focused in on returning citizens.
Right.
But I mean, some large number I wasn't anticipating. I thought maybe 50. I mean, it's such a large number. But many of those went unutilized, or they weren't, transitioned into what they were really meant to do for the returning citizens. So it's not the resources or sources aren't there. It's that connection point of, okay, this is who you are, where you're at, this is where you'd like to go. These are the services. Now we can build the path for you to get there.
Right. And, and I think the other challenge is too, I don't think I know this, is it's like when attention starts to be raised around a topic, whether it's returning citizens, whether it's workforce, you always have a category of entities that are like, well, we're going to start checking that box to say we do this because we think there's funds associated with it. Yeah. So the other opportunity and necessity is to say, when we review who says they do this type of training, do they really do it? Or are they hoping to do it because now they think there's funding? Do they really support returning citizens, or did they add it to their other programming because they thought there was going to be funding that came out as a result of that? And my experience has been, when you start calling those questions, you probably cut that number at half.
Probably. No, I could envision, and I know you're right. And that's actually kind of an interesting segue into what's going on now with the riots and Black Lives Matter, not to get too, charged on this topic. Clearly a huge issue. We're two white women talking about the business that we have, on a podcast, but we're two people in a community and in a society with businesses, and we interact with businesses, and we have friends, and we have impact within the communities that we live in and that we work in and we care about.
Right.
And I'm getting to the point of piggybacking on I call them trends, but things that happen to be topical. And from a business perspective, I'm talking potentially not with clients of yours, but as you work with larger corporations and their value systems and their ethics and their morals, and where do they really stand? Those are fine lines, especially today where people are hypersensitive, and they will be only more, and they should be. Community and culture and society should be holding people accountable in companies. So that sense of being in it just for the minute, or really in it for the long haul as a business, is a big dividing line now.
It is, and it's like one of the benefits of the way we choose our industry and customer base is we have many customers that are aligned with our morals, our ethics, and what we believe a business should do. We also have an opportunity to not engage because we don't chase after business, we don't chase trends, we focus on particular industries. And we've walked away from customers because we didn't feel that there was an alignment and there was a sincerity. There's other places that you can sell where there is. It's you know enough about us to know we don't issue a lot of press releases. We don't talk about what we're going to talk about. We believe that we just go out and act and demonstrate by our actions. And that's what we'll do every single day. But we also know that if we're running a good business and we're profitable and we have a good reputation, then we also have the ability to ensure that we're doing business with entities that are shared values, shared approach, and shared ethics.
And I think that's and I think that's, you bring up such a big point on running a business that's profitable. Within Detroit, sometimes you kind of hear, well, we're not into the corporate this or into making money that. And you got to make the money in order to give it back, because you're ultimately making the money not for your own pocket. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're making it in order to build out the economy around you so that you can hire more people, so that they can have better lives, so that they can contribute more. I mean, it's a good thing. Making money is a good thing.
It is a good thing. And everybody in S3 agrees that, I mean, we part of what we're looking to do is have the resources to make a difference the way we want to make a difference. And if we're financially strong, then we can do that.
Yeah. So how are you going to now approach what, you're working, but are you back again now with individuals being back in the office? I'm talking now via COVID. How are you approaching that?
Well, very carefully. And remember, in our world, we have our world, and then we have what our customers want our consultants to do. So, which means we have our customers' roles, then we have our customers' roles in every different city, state, country, and our own role. So our request is that as many of our consultants that continue to work from home that they can, and so far, the feedback is they've been very productive. They have worked well. We do have consultants that are in healthcare roles, that are nurses, that are screeners. The nature of their job means they have to be at the customer site. We take ownership of making sure they have all of the equipment that they need from personal protection. We have arrangements set up both for virus testing and for antibody testing that we provide. And then for our core overhead team in our branches, each location will function differently depending on what's going on. And then we have core people here in Detroit. Some of us, I mean, we've been in the office. We have our own cleaning service that comes in. We have a temperature stand outside the door. We have hand sanitizer. But the thing is, it's like we do everything we can to control the particular part of our environment. So a good example, we had in smaller markets, we were using like shared office space. And I'm like, no one can go back to shared office space. Not that I don't believe in the concept, but we don't have the ability to control that environment. If it's our office and we bring in our own cleaning crew in addition to the building's cleaning crew, and we have our own temperature guides and we have our own way to sanitize, we can't make it perfect, but we can limit the risk, if that makes sense.
Of course. So it's really being able to, as much as you can, control the impact to your teams, because you need to.
Yes, we need to. And then making sure that within, we have some customers where we have people in 12 states and 3 countries. So each one of those environments is different, with a different set of rules, a different set of needs. So again, it's like, how many phone calls do we need to make to get this right?
Boy.
Yeah.
You have your hands full.
We do.
This double, tripled all the work you were already doing, which was a lot of.
We used to think it was just difficult to understand, like labor laws, taxes. That's nothing now. Now that's like, no problem, we got that. What's
now
the code?
Health experts too.
Yeah.
Incredible. So, what do you see like? Because your finger is so much on the pulse of business within the community, because you're involved in so many different boards and you're kind of a leader in so many different ways, and people really look up to you. And every time there's anything important to be said, Cindy Pasky's on the stage. So, what do you think that the impact's going to be these next couple of months within downtown or greater Detroit or Metro Detroit?
I think that we have an opportunity to not neutralize the impact, but to reduce how great it can be. I think the mayor launching his Detroit Means Business is really, really important. Having resources available to small businesses, recognizing that it's one thing for S3 to go out and order scrubs and handheld right? It's another thing for a 10-person operation to even know where to get that, let alone be able to afford it. But to your point earlier, it has to be real resources. So like if they call Detroit Means Business, they actually get an answer. They actually know what to do. When he started rolling out the free testing a while ago, I thought that was huge. The ability to have your people tested more than once, right? But there'll be an impact. I mean, S3 was a small business once, and as well as I do, cash flow is king. It's even sometimes more important than the ability to get a loan. It's, how can you manage that cash flow? So, I was at the mayor's workforce board meeting today. We were talking about outreach to procurement entities, reminding them that cash flow is king. So if you want to engage or re-engage with a small business, can you change the payment terms for them? Doesn't have to be forever, but maybe the next 6 months. So if you're normally 45 days, can you be 15? What do you need to do if they're to remove those type of barriers so they have an opportunity to continue to be viable? Getting them the equipment, getting them free testing. But there'll be an impact. I mean, there's always, in the best of economies, there's always a group of companies that are on the edge, that. And a great economy lets them stay on the edge longer. That changes, they're probably not going to come back. And then the ones that are moving towards the edge, if they've demonstrated they can be viable, then I think there needs to be the obligation of what do we do to keep them going? Pay them quicker, get them free, N95 masks, that's what they need. Get them free testing. So those things, COVID doesn't add another big budget cost to them running their business, if that makes sense. And some logic and common sense. I know the mayor's working on sidewalk seating. It's like, it's great to say that a restaurant can open at 50%, but a lot of restaurants will go out of business if they can only run at 50%. Their numbers don't work that way. So you see some of our restaurants, they're not going to open yet. They're going to continue with takeaway because the formula doesn't work yet for them to have their numbers work. So recognizing, is there some way we can help change those numbers with, they put up a tent and they can sit 10 people outside. So now they're 65% instead of 50%.
Right. I mean, on one hand, thank goodness that if it were to have happened, that it happened in spring, summer, and not in fall, winter, and the dip of February. But it's. I mean, we're all seeing it. It's going to be a big impact, and what's September, October, November going to look like? Because it's sunny, and you kind of think, oh, it's not really going on, but it is really going on. It's real.
Until we have a vaccine, everyone has to err on the side of like the virus is right there. Like you can't see it. So to your point, it's easy to like try and put it out of your mind. But until we have a vaccine, we have to remember that it's there.
Yeah.
And how do we keep our people safe, and how do we find a way to remove the barriers that add to the cost to keep our businesses viable?
So on that point, what would Cindy Pasky's top 3 suggestions or tips be for running a successful business in today's world?
Today's world. Thank you. Well, cash is king. So it doesn't mean that you have to have a lot of it to start, but you have to intimately understand it and know how it's going to flow and look at it every single day.
Yeah.
The second is that if you're going to start a business doing something that you're really good at, which isn't necessarily the thing that you love most.
Big point. Ching, 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 ching. It's not always about the dream. It's about knowing what you can do the best to survive.
Right. And if you do that really well, then you might have the resources later on to do something that has to do with the dream. And then, and then the third thing is, even though it's a cost, have the best accounting and legal advice that you can get. Those are my 3 things.
Excellent points. They're all going to be written down, and they're all going to be circulating on social in a couple days' time. You're a rock star. Thank goodness that you're here in Detroit and with us and guiding us to our way forward. And I can't wait to finally see you in person.
I know. Me too.
So much for this. This really was.
Oh, thank you, and congratulations on everything you've accomplished. It's like really cool.
Thank you. All righty. Well, we'll be in touch, and thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.